So I feel like I want to say that this Miami is really different from Indian Wells, and it's just two completely different tournaments in that this Miami is filled with, I wouldn't say upsets, but rather some predictable wins. Like Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka managed to go pretty far, although there are some upsets. And on the men's side, even though players like Carlos Alcaraz, Alexander Zverev didn't make it to the finals, and Alcaraz lost, and all of the semifinal players for Indian Wells lost. However, I still think players like Novak Djokovic made it far, and I just think this shows that Indian Wells was won obviously by Mira Andreeva and Jack Draper, and I feel like Miami is going to be really different, and it's just going to be people who we are expecting almost to win. And I just want to talk about the dynamics between these two tournaments and talk about Miami Open. Welcome, tennis fans, to Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that dives into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy Zhang. In today's episode, I will be talking about Miami Open. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So I want to start off by talking about the scheduling problems. I don't want to talk too much about it because it'll just be a rant about how the schedule is all messed up and just players are playing at random hours, and even if they are moved, for example, I think the Djokovic match was moved, it's just for like the short-term benefit because a lot of people who came and paid to watch that match just don't get to watch that match. And like Fonseca being moved too, I feel like there has been a lot of issues surrounding the scheduling, and I would say Indian Wells have a really good schedule because I feel like they had more rain delays than Miami, but the players, they normally, especially at the early rounds, they get a day of rest before playing. But in Miami, there's no way that you're playing a 2 or 3 hour match in the night session and playing the day session immediately after. Like, that's just not possible. And I think an example of this is Mira Andreeva versus Anisimova, which was won by Anisimova, but she played against Raducanu, who, played incredible. She was a really good player, and she played great in that match, but Anisimova just completely wasn't herself, and I think that's obviously due to maybe her blister that she suffered, but also for just playing such a long match the day after and just coming right back. And I think players don't want that, the tournament doesn't want that, and fans don't want to watch that because they paid money to get quality matches, and instead of getting quality matches, I don't think that was anything of quality. I think she was just really struggling, and I just really hope Miami figures something out because I know the American swing is so intense. It's literally just tennis, tennis, and tennis. It's tennis actually nonstop. And players have also talked about just like not playing in all of these tournaments. For example, Djokovic, he haven't played in Miami in such a long time because frankly, he's getting older and his body just doesn't hold up. And I feel like he only chose to play in Miami because he didn't get the results he wished he could have during Indian Wells. And yeah, he just hoped to come back. But this was just, there was so many messy matches and so many just like weird upsets going on. And I think or just like weird matches going on, and I think some of them definitely have to do with just players not having enough rest time. So yeah. Okay, sorry, that's my rant, but now I want to actually talk about tennis. So let's focus on the women's side first. So I want to talk about some interesting matches that happened. Let's start on Monday. So I want to talk about Coco Gauff losing to Magdalena. I'll be leaving links to these matches. So I thought Coco Gauff was good, and I think I talked about this in the last episode, that just her form was like she's playing really good at the start of the season during the United Cup especially, and I think a lot of people thought, okay, she's playing great, and it seemed like all her forehand problems and serve problems just disappeared after she hired her new coach. But so we obviously, for me at least, I expected her to go really far in Australian Open. I even expected her to win that whole thing. But once Australian Open came around, she didn't play the way she played at the United Cup. And I factored some of that towards just the Grand Slam, which obviously is going to get a lot of nerves and conditions are different. But I think just throughout the season, we can still tell, especially just like losses like this to Magdalena, that she wasn't herself. She didn't play the tennis that she wanted to play. And even if you can't play a really good match, changing something really technical like your serve and your forehand takes a lot of time. So Coco Gauff had 12 double faults in this match, which isn't ideal. She lost 4-6, 4-6, and many of those double faults could potentially cost her the game, cost her the match. So I think that's something she needs to work on. But I think she's going to play well on clay, because I feel like for her, clay is one of her best surfaces. She plays well on hard and clay courts. So yeah, I'm excited for her to continue playing. And then I briefly talked about the Raducanu versus Anisimova match, but I also want to talk about Naomi Osaka versus Jasmine Paolini. So I love both of these players. Like, I actually do. I think both of these players are outstanding players. And, I mean, I really do like both of these players, but obviously I like Naomi Osaka better. And she played great in that first set. She was hitting balls where she wanted it to, and I don't know, I feel like when a lot of professional players play tennis, it's not just her. I'm just scared because the margin of error is so fine and so delicate, and I feel like when they're not playing their best, sometimes it could just be an error, and that can cost them the game. And I think that's what happened with Naomi in the second set. I feel like she played a little bit too close, maybe taking a little bit too much risks, and that's how she lost the second set. And I feel like her serves, especially her second serve, isn't on par to how it was before. And she also had 15 break points, but she only managed to convert 3 of them, whereas Paolini also only had 5 break points, but converted 3 of them. So that's like a huge difference. But mind you, Naomi Osaka won 4 more points than Jasmine Paolini, but Paolini still got to win the game. So I mean, that's how tennis is. But yeah, that's just something. I'll leave a link to all of these so you guys can watch the highlights. But that was, I think, a great match, and I think it like sort of triggered something in Paolini, because Paolini did not play well. Well, okay, she played great, but she didn't play how she would have liked to, because her last season was just a dream season. But this season, obviously, she suffered from an injury, so that was a setback, but she didn't play as well as she would have liked to. However, I still think that, I just think it woken something to her, and for her to go to the semifinals is a pretty good achievement for her. And then I want to talk about Sabalenka versus Qingwen in the quarterfinals. So we're moving to quarterfinals now. So for the Sabalenka match, I think it's really interesting that she has a 6-0 head-to-head with Qingwen. I think that just proves, I think it proves Sabalenka's dominance against players like Qingwen or like Pegula, for example. But that also proved that Qingwen needs more work against players like Sabalenka, because she have 0-6 record. And I feel like she just can't handle Sabalenka's pace. And I feel like she definitely improved. I feel like the start of the season, especially in Australia, maybe she didn't perform well and it was just off. But still, regardless, she just needs to figure something out to beat Sabalenka, or just at least make that match competitive, like how she did, for example, last year. So, yeah. Okay, now I want to talk about the other quarterfinals. We had Magdalena versus Paolini. Pretty straightforward win for Paolini, 6-3, 6-2. The other quarterfinal, Raducanu versus Pegula. I would say the first 2 sets of this match was extremely high quality. I think it was a great matchup. It was amazing, but the third set, Emma suffered from a little bit of injury, so the quality went down. But I mean, I feel like runs like these are really beneficial to Emma because she needs to know how she compares when she plays against players like Pegula, who's in the top 10. And I feel like she needs to slowly train her body to adapt to these long matches because, as I said before, like Miami and just Indian Wells is a pretty intense, like, a month of tennis, and players, even if they're not playing, it's just constantly tennis. They're constantly training. They're just constantly just on the court and always in game mode. So I think that's something she needs to figure out, but I think it's a great run. And then the other quarterfinals, Yala versus Iga Swiatek. Yala beat Swiatek 6-2, 7-5. I think, first of all, Yala played great. I think she's a really good player and she have a great ability of disguising her shots. Like, when I'm watching her, I didn't expect her to like suddenly go the other way or suddenly go the other way. Like, you can't tell where she's putting the ball, but maybe that's just because I haven't watched her enough. Like, I don't know where she's putting the ball, but for example, like when, let's say, Naomi Osaka plays, I know exactly where she's hitting it by how she like prepares to hit the ball. But however, even though full credit to Yala, Iga was really off. And I think that is a really big problem because she hasn't won a title since Roland Garros. And even though she did have the most wins of the year, I think her mindset is really stuck on to just like getting a title and being world number one. And I'm not sure if that's a healthy mindset. Obviously, going into French Open, she's going to be the favorite. I think when a player is that dominant on a tennis court, especially on like that surface, like even if she's not performing well, even though she lost in the Olympics to Qingwen, I still think she's going to be like the title winner. Like, for example, Rafa last year, I mean, I expected him to go really far. It's just like when a player is really dominant on a surface, I just expect them to continue their dominance no matter how they are. And obviously, I feel like I put Iga on top in French Open, but at the same time, I feel like players really do have a chance of challenging her. I feel like last year Naomi Osaka almost did it, and I feel like this year, low-key, a lot of players have a chance. So yeah, I still think Iga's going to win the title, but I think it's going to be a really close battle, and she's going to have multiple close battles. Okay. And then for the semifinals, Sabalenka versus Paolini, pretty straightforward. I think this is another matchup where Sabalenka just feels reassured that she's able to beat players like Paolini, like Zheng Qingwen, in a pretty straight-handedly manner, 6-2, 6-2. Pegula versus Yala was another great matchup. I think this was a great matchup, and I think Yala, obviously, I feel like she sometimes, with the nerves, she choked a little, I would say, because she was leading the first set 5-3, and then Pegula, with her experiences, obviously came back, and it was 6-all, and Pegula won the tiebreak for the first set, and I think that was super important. But overall, great match, and I just think Pegula is really playing well because, mind you, Yala beat both Madison Keys, Iga Swiatek, and Ostapenko. So I think for Pegula to come back and just to play like this is a pretty, like, she's playing pretty good. And for the finals, which is going on right now between Pegula and Sabalenka, so it's going on actually right now, and I thought Sabalenka was going to win in a pretty straightforward way. But I really do see this match as a match that might go on because both of these players, I feel like, aren't playing at their best right now. But I just feel like it's going to be a really tight 3-setter, and I have Sabalenka winning it. But I just feel like it's going to be really tight because both of these players are playing good. Pegula beat, Yala, she beat Raducanu, and she also beat Kotsiak going into the finals. And Sabalenka obviously beating Paolini in a two straight sets, beating Zheng Qingwen. Like, she's also doing well. So yeah, I hope this will be a close 3-set match. And I have the win slightly leaning towards Sabalenka just because of her head-to-head with Pegula. But yeah, okay, that was a lot. But we'll rest for a little bit and then we'll come back and talk about the men's singles tournament. Okay, welcome back. We'll now talk about the men's tournament starting on Monday, and we'll talk about some round of 16 matches. So let's see. I feel like round of 16 matches, I want to talk about the one between Djokovic versus Musetti. I expected this to be closer than it is because Musetti, he improved a great deal compared to last season. I feel like him last season going to the semifinals of Wimbledon and just having some consistent wins on clay and grass, even though obviously he's not the best on hard courts. So this is a tough surface for him, and he had some injuries, so I expected more fight from him. I expected him to go in with just trying to fight for every ball because I feel like he is a player that gives it his all, but this just didn't feel like it. Djokovic won in a pretty straightforward manner, 6-2, 6-2, and I think it just wasn't really a competitive match. I thought it would be at least a 3-setter would be closer. I feel like he's obviously a step up compared to the other opponents Djokovic had prior, but instead it was just not that great. So yeah, okay. Now I want to talk about the quarterfinals. I want to start with Dimitrov versus Francisco Cerundolo. This was insane. This was actually insane because Grigor Dimitrov, he is 33. And he's playing such good tennis. And it was a close 3-set match. He lost the first set 6-8 in a tiebreak with just a simple volley miss. And I thought he was done. But he came back and he was literally struggling in the first set. He came back to win this entire thing. And I don't know how many performances we can expect like this from Dimitrov. Because I feel like players like Novak Djokovic, like Grigor Dimitrov, like Gael Monfils, for example, they all will hit a wall at some point. And I think that's just, when they hit a wall, it's a wall, and they will have to withdraw or just play a compromised game against their next opponent. And I think that's what happened with Dimitrov. We'll talk about it later. And, okay, let's go back. Sorry, I didn't talk about this round of 16 match that I want to mention, which is Alexander Zverev versus Arthur Fils. So the reason why I want to talk about this is I feel like starting from Australia till now, Zverev has been playing horrible tennis. He's just been horrible. I think he wanted to play the clay swing, the South American clay swing, because he wanted to get more points. But that simply just did not happen. He just got a few wins, and going to Indian Wells, he lost in the first round. He lost, although it was the quarterfinals, it was a round of 16 still. It wasn't what he expected at all. And I feel like that's definitely going to maybe hinder his performance and obviously lower his confidence at French Open, which I think personally is his best shot at winning a Grand Slam. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's going to be pretty rough for him. So yeah, wishing him all the best. Okay. And then I want to talk about the several other quarterfinals. So let's talk about Fritz versus Berrettini. This was a match where I think really built up the confidence for Fritz because he hasn't had the best year so far, and he just managed to grind it out against Berrettini because I think the tactics and how players play against Berrettini is pretty simple. Just hit to his backhand because his forehand is a monster and his backhand is just, well, it technically just doesn't match his forehand. So yeah, and I think I really do hope that I really do hope that both players play great because I really like both of them. But I think Taylor Fritz from winning this really showed that he is capable of going far, and like especially in this season, I feel like he doesn't really have a weaker surface, maybe except for maybe except for grass. But I really do hope he goes pretty far. Okay. And then Sebastian Korda versus Novak Djokovic. I would say this was also, again, a pretty straightforward match for Djokovic. Korda did cause him some trouble in the last set, but I think Djokovic was just really focused. He didn't let his guard down at all, and he managed to close out the tiebreak. And I just feel like Djokovic is playing really good right now, and because Jannik Sinner isn't in the draw and Carlos Alcaraz isn't in the draw, he's able to dominate against these players if he's playing really well and he's focused. Okay, another quarterfinal, Fils versus Jakub Mensik. Fils, I think, was just exhausted after the win against Zverev. He said that his back is effed up. He said a bunch of stuff about how he's just clearly injured. So I think this was a compromised Fils. But again, there was some incredible balls from Fils. I feel like he is a player that plays tennis with truly so much passion. And yeah, I just feel like he's an incredible player. And obviously he's still young, and I expected last year for him to go further than Draper, which obviously isn't the case this year. But still, I think with his passion and just him hitting some incredible shots at times, I feel like he's just like a really talented player. Okay, now on to the semifinals. I want to talk about Djokovic versus Dimitrov first because this was just pretty much like a really simple semifinals. As I said before, I feel like Dimitrov hit a wall after that Sarandula match. He's just completely exhausted. I think the thing that he didn't even withdraw was kind of surprising to me. And Djokovic, I don't think he didn't drop a set this entire tournament. So he's obviously, I don't think he's as tired as Dimitrov, who just literally played a monster match, like such a big match. So yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. And then I want to talk about Mensik versus Fritz. This was really close. The score was 7-4 Mensik for in the first set tiebreak, 4-6, and then 7-4 again in the deciding set tiebreak. Really, really close. I mean, not that much to say. I feel like both players just gave their complete all there. And I do want to mention, though, I think we have now in the game 3 youngsters that's going to make a lot of, I feel like they're going to be stars. Jakub Mensik, Joao Fonseca, and Lerner Tien. Obviously, I probably won't go 3 out of 3 for this. I feel like at least one of them will be a Grand Slam winner in the future because they are really good. And so far, Mensik is actually taking the lead because he made it to an ATP 1000 level final, even though his opponent will be on Djokovic, which will be taking place on Sunday. So I'm going to predict the results now, but by the time my episode comes out, you guys will know who the winner is. So if you want to skip this part, feel free. And I'll see you guys next week. But if you guys want to stick around to hear about the predictions, please stick around. I think that Djokovic is going to win because Mensik obviously lacks the experience of playing against such a big player on a big stage. And I think it's going to be like, it's either going to be him winning the first set and then Djokovic just completely dominating him like how he does as who he is, Djokovic, or Djokovic is just going to win in 2 pretty tight sets. I think Djokovic is going to come out on top, especially with his experience, and I feel like this is a title that with him and Andy Murray working together, it's going to be an extreme confidence booster for him. And yeah, I think that's all. Okay, I think that's all for this week's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, please make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, and please comment below what else and what other episodes you guys want to listen to. If you haven't followed me on social medias, you should. It's at Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. That is at Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. And if you are, again, listening on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. It really helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.